What's going on, YouTube? We're back at it for another video. Today we're going to be talking about those new weapons that came with the cutting-edge premium Warbond and talking about which one of them is going to be the best that more than likely you're going to find a lot of people playing around with, and arguably the next best thing that you may have been looking for this whole time when it comes to a primary weapon. With that being said, let's jump straight into it. Now, starting off at the bottom of the list, my least favorite weapon that came with this Warbond is going to be the Laser 7 Dagger. Now, this isn't the worst thing in the treasure chest of toys that we have available to play with. It can be useful in certain instances, and it's effectively a secondary that could have infinite ammo, which is quite nice, and it's pinpoint accurate. Thankfully, it's got a better reticle than that of the revolver. Sadly enough, I wish the revolver would just be a straight up iron sight instead of any type of red dot that may be on top of it, but that's a topic for a different day. But the Laser 7 Dagger let me down with facing off the automatons, so I am basically going to toss this to the side. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's something that you could possibly use when it comes to facing off with the Terminid, and it could be pretty useful in those instances, especially when it comes to having infinite ammo. Coming up right after that, we've got the ARC-12 Blitzer, which is an interesting weapon. This is something that I'm going to have to test with a little bit more, but I am not the hugest fan of this. It's almost a watered-down version of the arc thrower, and it doesn't do quite the same amount of damage. You will not have to charge this. You can actually just utilize a pump action on this, which almost feels like it's a super soaker that's electric. And sadly enough, it really is only basically putting out one stream. Now, effectively, this says it has a wide burst of electricity that arcs between units, but in general, the entire time I was using this, 90% of the time, this would literally only go to a single target. And sure, it does have stagger power to it, which can be nice, but I'm going to need to play around with this one a bit more. But as for right now, this wasn't exactly the most beneficial when it came to rolling in with this primary, and I'd almost argue that you'd want to have something like the Stalwart, the machine gun, or even the arc thrower with this, some type of support weapon to compensate for the fact that this isn't going to do the greatest as a primary weapon when it comes to dealing damage and dealing damage quickly. Coming up right after that is going to be the SG-8P Punisher Plasma, which if you know anything about my channel, you know I do love the pump action shotguns in general. They have been a favorable option when it comes to playing this game, but this one is a little bit different. The Punisher Plasma has attributes similar to that of the Scorcher, but it almost seems it falls a little bit limp, and what I mean by that, it is basically what seems to be a grenade launcher attachment, but in the form of a pump action shotgun. You will be able to lob plasma orbs or plasma rounds over to targets from over cover or behind cover, effectively is what I believe is going to be the end result of what they wanted out of this, was something that you could use as almost like a grenade launcher, but in a way something that could almost mortar fire plasma through the form of a Punisher shotgun. It's a little bit strange to work with. The damage isn't amazing, but it does have the stun lock capability of something like the Punisher or the Slugger, but without that capability of knowing that your shot's going to land directly on that target. You'll have to arc this over to them. You'll have to weirdly kind of work your way into a position to where you can get that proper shot to aim and lead that shot to the destination you'd like it to land at. But by the time I led my aim over to the point where I got it to land exactly where I'd like it to be, I ended up running out of ammunition, and then I'd have to reload as there's only 8 rounds inside of this shotgun. Now, this is by all means not a horrible shotgun, but I believe there's going to be a bit of a learning curve with this one. It may be more beneficial later. I'm not the hugest fan against the Terminid with it, but I will be giving this another go as we get into the weekend. There's more testing that needs to be done with this, but as for right now, this is going to be one that's going to seem very lackluster to a lot of people that initially use it, but there may be some utility factor that we'll need to look into a little bit later on. But for right now, don't put it completely away. It does have some capabilities of stun locking certain enemies, and it will have explosive damage towards those weak spots, so it can take down chargers really quickly, and it can stun lock those devastators, which is really important for me. I really enjoy that, and if you can lock it down with the aim, you can just find yourself behind cover, being able to volley these plasma rounds from behind that cover, avoiding the rocket fire and the Gatling sentries of those devastators, and be able to take them out fairly quickly, if not completely stun lock them. And at that same point, if you shoot the ground next to them, it doesn't have the biggest radius of effect, but it can splash to a group that are close together, which in those moments it can be pretty beneficial, but that's few and far between that you can actually land those shots with just the 8 rounds in one magazine. Now, when it comes to the best new weapon, the new weapon that is the AR you've been looking for, that tops every AR available right now, and it's still in the energy-based category, and on top of that will also give you the capability of having infinite ammo. It's going to be the LAS 16 Sickle. This thing, I love it, man. This is a #1 pick for me. This is the contender when it comes to facing off with the Punisher, the Scorcher. I am going to take this pretty much 9 times out of 10 when it comes to facing off with the automatons. The recoil is so low on this. The zoom is nice on it. The scope's pretty nice on it. I'm telling you, this thing's beaming those Devastators. You're hitting that face every single time. You're blowing off those rockets off the shoulders. You are just clearing some of these bases in the automatons and being able to lay down that fire also against the Terminid. I love this thing. This is by far my favorite weapon now. I love the Punisher, but I'm gonna have to put it to the side for a few days when it comes to playing with this one, even though I will have to force myself into playing around with those other shotguns that came with this Warbond. But overall, there is nothing that has felt better in this game when it comes to a primary weapon than this Laser 16 Sickle. I would say if anybody's been looking for some type of full auto weapon or an AR that is really suiting the category of being devastating, dealing enough damage to be capable of holding its own against small to medium type enemies, this is going to be the one. It may not be the greatest when it comes down to taking out something like Chargers, but that's why we have stratagems to work around those and support weapons that will be capable of taking those on. But overall, when it comes to the capability of holding its own, this Laser 16 Sickle is everything that I wanted. It makes every bit of the grind for those war medals worth it by the time I unlock this. And those Devastators have quite a bit of payback coming with this one. Because now that I'm able to beam them, oh, it's over for them. This is going to carry me through that creek. This is going to carry me through every single one of those automaton planets. It has made fighting with the automaton 10 times more enjoyable in my opinion, and it is right where it needs to be. Now, sadly enough, I didn't find any special attributes with this one when it came to playing around with it and testing it towards both the Terminid and that of the automatons, but the sheer accuracy of it and the capability of landing those headshots on Devastators and really just tearing through those bots, it really made it shine. And on that same point, giving me a full auto capable weapon when facing off with a Terminid that is clearing through those smaller to medium type enemies in quick efficiency, and at that same time giving me almost infinite ammo, even though you will find yourself in situations where you will need to reload this. But even then, we've got 6 magazines with it, and it takes quite a while to get that burn all the way up. About the only downside to this weapon is that I'm not a huge fan of the triangle reticle when it comes to the third-person fire, and at that same point, it is pretty slow to cool down this weapon once it has heated up. Those are about the only 2 drawbacks, but even then, if you've got 1 magazine left, you can't really go wrong with pulling out that secondary and then waiting for that to cool down and then effectively having consistently infinite ammo with this primary weapon. But that's going to be it right there, people. This is all of the weapons that we've gotten with this new cutting edge Warbond. I'm very pleased with the Sickle, not exactly the most pleased with the other 2 weapons, but I will have to play around with them a little bit more. I may find some utility factor out of both of them that will make it more capable in the coming future. There may be some tricks to it that may make it even more beneficial than it seems to be right now. As the #1 thing to understand with most of these primary weapons is that they are based around team play, and some of them can have some type of utility factor that can end up benefiting the team overall in working as a combination with other primaries or other stratagems to either hold some of these enemies down or give them the capability of stopping those enemies from overrunning your teammates. But I know a lot of times people will make the strongest argument that DPS is the #1 thing to stop enemies from overwhelming their teammates. But sometimes utility can be the factor as well. But let me know down in the comments below which one of these weapons have you been most enjoying. If there's anything that I may have missed when it comes to some of these weapons, do highlight that for me down in the comments below. I've got plenty of testing to do over the weekend and see if there's any new attributes to some of these weapons that I may not have noticed in the first 8 hours of playing around with them. But overall, I've had a good time with this, and I can't wait to see many more of these weapons come into the game. But if you'd like to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button, and if you'd like to see some of this content live, hit that link down in the description below. Follow me over at Twitch. We'll be streaming daily. And on that note, have a good one.